I thought this house was silent. In the first days, it truly was silent. But now I understand that this silence was not nothingness. It was a phase of adaptation. The house was getting used to me. At night, it was quiet, but it was listening, not with sound, with reactions. When I turn on the light, the air in the room changes. When I close the door, it pauses as if something has arrived late. When I close the curtains, the darkness stays outside. As if it was already here, it grows heavier. Sometimes I deliberately don't move. I do nothing. I even slow my breathing. And in those moments when I stop, I feel that the house continues. The first thing I noticed wasn't a sound. It wasn't a shadow either. It was an absence. But now I know it isn't an absence. This isn't a void. This is a way of claiming space. There are certain spots in the house. When I reach them, an unexplainable resistance forms inside me, as if my body decides before I do. I stand in front of a door. My hand moves toward the handle, and something inside me says, "Not yet." Why not? When? Who decides? Me? The house? Or is there something else making decisions in my place? When I opened file 017, I wasn't surprised anymore. A new page was normal. The text changing was normal. What wasn't normal was the text waiting for me. This time there was no time, no date, as if the file no longer cared about time. I read slowly. Shadows do not stay still. They change places. Not when you look, but when you don't. As I read those lines, I realized something. The shadow wasn't following me. It wasn't even watching me. It was waiting for me. That night, I lay down in bed. My eyes were closed, but I wasn't asleep. Between sleep and wakefulness, a person cannot deceive themselves. There was a sound, but it wasn't coming from anywhere. From the hallway? From the living room? No. The sound was changing places. One moment it was to my right, one moment behind me, one moment as if it were inside the ceiling, but it was always distant. And that was worse, because something that doesn't come closer isn't ready yet. A single line appeared in the file. Don't count your steps. It was too late. 1, 2, 3. The steps weren't coming toward me. They were moving around inside the house, as if something was measuring my position, as if something was memorizing the space where I exist. I didn't stand up, because the file said, "Movement is sometimes an invitation." I didn't move. I held my breath, and the steps stopped. But this time, they didn't truly stop. They just started listening to me. When I went to the bathroom, I looked into the mirror. My reflection was late. 1 second, maybe less. But it was enough. I smiled. My reflection froze. And in that moment, I understood. The shadow is not outside. It's not inside the house. It's not even inside the file. The shadow is learning my place. I closed file 017, but it didn't close. The pages were still there, as if they were being read even while shut. I couldn't turn off the light without seeing the final sentence. We know where you stand now. When I read that sentence, the house became truly silent for the first time. And this time, the silence did not feel safe.
The house stayed silent after that sentence, but this wasn't the silence I knew. This was the silence that comes after something has found its place. I turned on the light. Nothing changed. I opened the door. The hallway was the same. But inside me, something was now in the wrong place, as if I wasn't standing inside the house, but the house was standing inside me. That day, for the first time, I wanted to leave the house. There was no real reason. I just felt that I shouldn't stay inside. When I opened the door, the air was normal, the sky was calm. But the moment I stepped outside, a sound came from behind me. It wasn't the sound of the door closing. It was more like something settling into place. As I walked down the street, the sound of my footsteps didn't belong to me. I took a step. The sound came a moment later. As if someone was imitating my steps. I stopped and turned around. There was no one, but my shadow wasn't where it should be. The sun was out, but my shadow wasn't in its proper place. For a brief moment, it stood slightly behind me. Then I realized the shadow wasn't lagging behind. It was deciding. The people in town were different today, quieter, more watchful. As a man passed by me, he whispered without lifting his head, "Does it come from your house?" I asked what he meant. He looked at me, really looked, and only said this, "It's not you yet." When I returned home, the door wasn't locked. I remembered locking it, but file 017 was on the table, open. I hadn't opened it. There was a new page. This time the text was larger, clearer. When you leave your place, the void changes. The void. That word again. But this time, it felt like the void wasn't in me. I tried to close the file. It wouldn't close. The pages turned on their own. One paragraph stopped. The shadow does not imitate you. It learns you. And then, the page ended there. I didn't turn it, because for the first time, I thought that not reading might be an option. That night, I didn't turn off the lights. I remembered what the neighbor had said. Don't turn off the lights at night. I looked at my watch. 0314. The file was on the table. Closed. But closed files can still watch. At 0315, the air inside the house changed, like pressure. My ears clogged. At 316, I heard a step. Single. Clear. Close. At 317, nothing happened. That was worse, because a new sentence appeared in the file. Not yet. I lay down in bed, but the bed no longer belonged to me. The blanket was heavy, as if someone was holding it from underneath. I closed my eyes, and in that moment, I understood. The shadow was no longer moving around the house. It had changed places. Where was it? I noticed as I breathed out. My breath came out a moment late. I inhaled, but someone exhaled a moment later. The final sentence from file 017 was this: "Now wait your turn." And for the first time, I felt that this file didn't belong to me. I belonged to the file. After that night, I didn't sleep. Sleep was no longer rest. Sleep meant losing control. And when I lost control, I knew something else would take over. When morning came, the first thing I noticed was this. I hadn't woken up. My eyes were open, but inside, I didn't feel awake. As if something had woken up before me and left me my turn. I went to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. This time, my reflection wasn't late, but it was too compliant. I tilted my head. It tilted too. I raised my hand. It raised its hand too. But there was something in my eyes, a patience that wasn't mine, as if my reflection already knew what I was going to do. File 17 was on the table, closed, but I no longer needed to open it. The sentences were inside my mind. When the imitation is complete, it goes unnoticed. I didn't remember reading that sentence in the file, but I knew it. Some knowledge isn't read, it is placed. During the day, I felt like I was watching myself. I was doing things, but I wasn't the one deciding. I drank water, but I wasn't thirsty. I locked the door, but I wasn't going out. As if my body was rehearsing, not for me, in my place. I saw the neighbor again. This time, he didn't come close. He stayed far away, very far. He looked into my eyes and slowly nodded his head, like approval or a farewell. In that moment, I understood. The shadow was no longer in the house. The shadow wasn't in the file either. The shadow was in my routines. For the first time, there was a question in file 017. Not an order, not a warning. A question. Do you remember? I knew what it meant, but I didn't want to answer, because remembering meant accepting my place. I thought about my childhood, an old house, a dark hallway. When I woke up at night, a shadow standing in the crack of the door. Back then, I couldn't look at it, but I knew it was there. Now, I realize that shadow had never left. It had only been waiting for me. A new line appeared in the file. Some are chosen early. It was an explanation, but at the same time, it was an accusation. That night, I decided to go outside, to truly leave. I thought the only place where the house wasn't watching me was outside the house. I approached the door. I placed my hand on the handle, and for the first time, I was controlling my hand. I opened the door. Outside was quiet, but it wasn't familiar. The streetlights were on, but they weren't spreading light. It was as if they were pointing at the darkness. I took a step, then another step, and in that moment, I heard a breath behind me. It wasn't my breath. One final sentence came from file 017. I didn't read it anymore. I heard it. If you turn back now. The sentence was cut short, but I knew the rest. I didn't turn back. And in that moment, I realized the point of no return had already been left behind.